So, welcome back. My name's Damien, and I've been doing this month's Monday nights, and this is the last of February. So I'll try to do a bit of a oversight of the whole month, and talk about maybe an additional point. So what I've been mainly talking about is the development of love and compassion within yourself. Really that is the practical aspect of what I've been discussing. And so I've been doing it from this sort of like a slogan of, there is no secret. The secret is that there is no secret. And what I'm trying to convey there is that we don't particularly need to learn something super special or something hidden, something rare, whatever, because if we can develop some good quality of introspection and analysis of our own life experience, then we can pretty much work out everything that needs to be done on, particularly on a day-to-day practical basis. And so the solution, in a way, that I'm discussing is to develop the quality of love and compassion within yourself. So that's no secret. This is something we're all familiar with. We are all familiar with what love and compassion means, particularly when somebody else shows us real love and affection or shows us real care and compassion. And so, in my own consideration or practice, I look for particular moments in my life that encapsulates a great care and compassion for me, something that I have experienced. And there's a few incidents that even my mere mentioning of that immediately come into my mind. Events or moments in my life where I can immediately recall something that I can truly identify as pure care and compassion that I have experienced. So my point is that we need to do that to absolutely ensure for yourself that you value love and compassion. So we can start from the point of view of seeing this great value of love and compassion when it is directed towards me. I can see the great value of generosity when it is directed towards me. I can see the great value of patience and being considered with dignity and respect when it's directed towards me. So we can start from that point of view. How we enjoy and maybe even crave others to show us patience, respect, give us dignity, be generous to us, show us real care and kindness and compassion. So we can see within ourselves that we might crave for that treatment from others. So I would then assert that nobody doubts the value of love and compassion. Right? So if we really work on, first of all, we work on that side of it, that for me, there is no question in my mind that I doubt the value of love and compassion when it is shown to me. So then we need to be able to transfer that let's say, absolute belief in the value of love and compassion. We need to transfer that into what I do for others. So then we need to consider, if I think it's so great when it's shown to me, why do I not think it's so important when I think about my relationships with others or my treatment of others? And so we can work on that. And so we discussed in the first couple of weeks this approach of really seeing the value of love and compassion when it's shown to me, and so then making an extension to really start to believe love and compassion is valuable for me when I offer it to others. So I do not believe that that is automatic. I think we need to seek a good reason so that we find that more and more powerful, more and more something we want to do. Because I think the reality is that I have a lot of blocks, a lot of some internal obstacles or blocks or rationality, some sort of reasoning process that justifies me not showing affection, not showing compassion, not caring, not generous, not patient, not showing others respect and dignity. That for whatever reason I can convince myself that they are reasonable behaviours. So we need to sort of find what is that reasoning, and then look for a counter reasoning, a reasoning to show that the opposite is the truth, that love and compassion is always beneficial. And that for me to show love and compassion is absolutely the best path to follow. But we need some techniques or we need some ability, some skills to actually develop that. I think I emphasise that I do not believe that it's automatic. So even though as humans we do have a disposition towards altruism, we have a disposition towards community. The human being is somebody who is very dependent on good relationships, we seek companionship, we want good relationships. But I still think even given that nature of being a human being, even given that nature, that still we need to come up with good reasons to really practice love and compassion. And so then we discussed a little bit about recognising the kindness of others, and then generating a sort of an appreciation of that kindness and a sense of gratitude, and then a sense of wishing to repay that kindness. So there's that sort of process that we can work on. And certainly in the Buddhist tradition of mental transformation or thought transformation, there are very prescribed methods to do that. Very methods that are set out very clearly for us to develop love and compassion on the basis of recognising love and compassion, and recognising the kindness of others, and then recognising the need to express love and compassion out of gratitude. And then last week we then went on to talk about seeing love and compassion as a protector. And so the reasoning goes here that when I'm angry, when I'm jealous, when I'm impatient, when I'm aggressive, when I'm competitive, when I'm arrogant, overly proud, when I'm have senses of superiority, even a sense of inferiority, that these are all negative states of mind that are in contradiction to having love and compassion. And in fact, those states of mind cannot abide in my mind with love and compassion at the same time. So this is something to really recognise, that love and the minds of love, the mind of love, the mind of compassion, those minds are in complete contradiction to minds like the mind of anger, the mind of jealousy, the mind of superiority or excessive pride, of resentment, arrogance, competitiveness. And so to see that there is this opposition between these two, and that the two of them cannot abide simultaneously. So if we make a conscious effort to hold our mind in a state of love and compassion for others, if we make that effort, then it acts as a protection. So love and compassion is actually a protection for myself from falling into hatred or falling into anger, jealousy, resentment, arrogance, etc. And to really see that the mind of love, the mind of compassion cannot coexist with the mind of hatred or jealousy or superiority, miserliness even. They cannot coexist. And so our mind will go from one to the other. Can only go from one to the other. They cannot be simultaneous. So if we really accept that, we can see that if I'm able to hold my mind in a state of affection for others, expressing love and compassion towards others, then it will actually protect me from the destructive states of mind like hatred and anger, and really to come to see that that's true. So that's something you have to put effort into, or some consistency. So some, like I said, familiarization. We need to familiarize our mind with that, and then finally we can come to a point where we have established that as true. So that over a period of time we may try to remind ourselves of that. So whenever we fall into anger or hatred, we can then, when that moment has passed, when that anger has subsided, we can then sort of make a determination to hold an affection or a kindness, a love and compassion for others as a protection for myself against becoming angry, against developing hatred. So that's something that we need to familiarise our mind with, and it be over a long period of time. That is a good practice to start. So part of that discussion last week really revolves around us understanding how the mind works. And the key to all of this is to understand how the mind works. So I think there was a question last week and this aspect came up. So I tonight just want to talk about it a little bit. Every situation that we encounter, let's say we experience that situation, or we experience that person, we experience that workplace, that walking down the street, we experience it through the aid of conceptuality. We have a mental process that goes on, and it's basically the process of conceptuality of that object or of that situation. And so to understand that there's the object, let's say another person, and then there's my conceptual experience of that object. And although they seem very closely related, they're not exactly the same. And so on the basis of my conceptuality, I might generate hatred. Okay? So my long-time enemy has come into the room and I am experiencing anger. But to see that relationship is, there's the person, and then there's my apprehension, my conceptuality, and then on the basis of that, there is my generation of anger. So in Buddhist terminology, we call anger an affliction. It's an affliction. It's a mental state that is afflicted by the anger. The anger itself is an affliction, and it's called an affliction because the immediate experience of anger is a suffering experience for myself. You know, it is a poison. You know, it's referred to as a poison. So the immediate experience for me is an unpleasant experience. But the real issue at play here is that anger arises on the basis of my enemy. So we would all agree with that the enemy is the cause for me to feel anger. So I think everybody would sort of say yes to that. But the process that we don't see is that the anger itself is an affliction which is actually in my mind. It's not in the person. So we can say that person is the cause for my anger. But the anger itself is a mental experience in my mind. And even though you can say that the person has caused my anger, the person itself is not actually the cause of the anger. So there's sort of a complicated point here that the anger has arisen in dependence on seeing the enemy, but the anger itself is an internal mental state, and it's produced or it's generated internally in my mind. And so although there's this relationship, the actual affliction itself that causes me suffering is in my mind, and it's not the enemy. So this is something to really start to examine, and that is that when the enemy walks into the room and I feel angry, I generate this affliction of anger in my mind, and it is the anger itself that causes me suffering. The unpleasant feeling that I experience is caused by the anger itself and not by the enemy. Okay, that's something really important to try to understand and to see it within your own experience. So when I see my brother, friend, wife, girlfriend, partner, business associate, whatever, have great success, but I have none, and I feel jealous. I feel jealous even of my close friend's success. That jealousy, which is an unpleasant experience, you can say it is caused by that person's success, but the affliction itself is in my mind, and it is the affliction itself that is causing me the suffering and the unpleasant feeling. Okay, so I'm hoping this is sort of making some sense to you. It might seem like a trivial point, or it might seem just, what's he talking about? But there is something here to really understand, and that is the working of our mind. Because if we can really see that my lust, my pride, my anger, my hatred, my miserliness, my jealousy, my resentment, arrogance, etc., if I can really see that the actual affliction itself is a process within my mind, and I can say that my jealousy or my lust is generated by this external situation. I can say that. It's caused. But the reality is that the actual experience that I have is actually caused by the affliction itself in my own mind. And there's a difference there between those two. So I'm going to keep harping on this because I can see the puzzlement in some people's faces. This is not easy to understand in a way. It may seem to you really trivial, but I can assure you this is not a trivial point. There is something really important to understand here. And so that process then can show us that despite any circumstance that I encounter, any circumstance whatsoever that I encounter, I am able to overcome the afflictions from my own side. So no matter how many enemies I'm surrounded by, because the anger itself is something within my mind and it's based on my conceptuality of these enemies, because of that, I am able to be free of anger, despite the enemies. Okay, so how do we do that? This is the key question. So if we can really take ownership of our own conceptuality and our own afflictions, then we can see that in the same way that love and compassion can overcome anger, can overcome resentment and arrogance, etc., in that same way, we can see that love and compassion can overcome this affliction internally, within my mind. And so that seeing that process, and there's a really good side to this, because if we really start to understand this process, and let's say, for instance, in terms of my anger, then I no longer need to blame myself. I can, if I see it like this, that the generation of the affliction in my mind, that is the real problem, then I can then say that me as a person, as an identity, as a person, am not to blame, but the affliction that has taken over my mind, that and look, there is an ownership here in that I have somehow enabled that affliction to arise, but the object of blame itself is actually the affliction, not me as a person, because I can overcome the affliction. I can apply an antidote and I can overcome the affliction, and then I am free of that affliction. So to see how the way that the afflictions can come and go, and then the good quality minds, let's say like love and compassion or patience, generosity, they can come. And if we can maintain them, they will last. But if we sort of forget about them a while, they will disappear, and then maybe anger and hatred will come back, and then we can reapply the love and compassion, and the anger and the hatred is driven away, and then maybe we get slack, and then the hatred and the jealousy, etc., come back, and then we can overcome it. But I am there all through this. So I myself, as a person, am not to blame. But this process of letting the afflictions arise and then overcoming them, that process is, that it's sort of like, it's slightly separate to me. So when we then look at other people, and we understand this for myself, if I can really understand this dance of the afflictions within my mind and within my experience, if I can really understand that, then when I look at somebody else and I see that they're angry, or I see that they're maybe cruel or miserly or tortured, they're really harmful, then I can see that the problem is that there is an affliction operating in their mind, but the person themselves is not to blame. And so on that basis, then, we can actually generate a great love and compassion to others, seeing that that person, you know, the worst person in the world is an object of love and compassion because they are a victim of the afflictions in their mind. So that's something really to understand. So we can understand it within ourselves, and then we can extend that outward to other people, and we can start to understand that the most miserliest, meanest billionaire in the world is not to blame for their miserliness. The person themselves is great, but the miserly affliction that they're suffering from is a problem, and they are suffering from it. So this is a way that we can separate a person from the afflictions that they are troubled with. You know, because we are all troubled with our afflictions. To really see that I am troubled by my anger, by my jealousy, my miserliness, my lust, my arrogance, my pride, you know, they cause me trouble. And similarly, everybody else is troubled by their afflictions. And so the object of blame for everybody is the persistence of the afflictions in their minds. It's that the afflictions abiding in their mind, that is the object of blame. And so when we can make that separation between a person and the afflictions in their mind, we can then have great love and compassion for the person. And we can see that the path for that person is to become free of their afflictions, and then their suffering will be overcome. So for me, then, in my case, my afflictions, I can start to see that the mind state of mindfulness and alertness, being able to actually see what's going on in my mind, is really critical. To have that self-awareness, to see the anger coming up in my mind, that the perception of somebody as an enemy, and then letting myself indulge in that perception. You know, so the process that anger arises is finding somebody really maybe unpleasant, annoying or whatever, and then I indulge in the generation of anger towards that person. So mindfulness is critical for me to catch that indulgence in anger at the earliest possible moment, and then to oppose it. Because normally we find that before we are even aware of it, we have this raging anger that is almost out of control, because we have actually been indulging it for some period without being aware that we were doing that. And so if we are able, the earlier that we can possibly catch this indulgence in anger, the better we are able to overcome it. And so that requires this quality of mindfulness, to be aware of our own state of mind. And then if we start to then try to apply love and compassion as an antidote, we then need the quality of introspection to ensure that love and compassion is being maintained. You know, so it's the sort of guarding apprehension of the, let's say in this case, maintaining the presence of the antidote, maintaining that. So mindfulness and alertness are the two of the, you know, they're the real product of meditation. Now, there is a third quality, which is called conscientiousness. Now, conscientiousness is a state of mind which deliberately maintains love and compassion as a omnipresent attitude. So the idea of conscientiousness is that in every moment of our day, we deliberately maintain an attitude of love and compassion. And the reason that we would do that is that if we are able to deliberately and constantly maintain an attitude of love and compassion, then we are constantly protected against anger and hatred. Because it's like the guard is already present. We don't have to wait until the enemy walks into the room before we decide to think about love and compassion. So if that's the impression that you've got, that we wait until there's a problem and then we try to remind ourselves of love and compassion, that's a very sort of piecemeal solution. So the best solution is one where we actually are actively cultivating love and compassion all of the time as a protection. So that quality is called conscientiousness. So the way that they are developed is through meditation. So, and I hope over the last 4 weeks I've sort of given enough logical reasons for us to really start to think about how we can progress in our development of love and compassion. So meditation is the way that we can increase or cultivate particularly these qualities of mindfulness and alertness, because they're the tools that enable us to be aware and then to make an effort to overcome our anger or overcome our jealousy. Become aware of your jealousy and then think about what the antidote is and then apply the antidote to your thinking. So the other person does not lose their fame or their wealth or their beauty or their success, but you can lose your jealousy if you apply the antidote and you then overcome that affliction within your own mind. So this is, again, just to sort of make that clear, we think that it's the other person's success, that they have got a promotion and I have not got one. They've got the beautiful partner that I craved for, but they were successful. They have all the wealth and the beautiful house, car, clothes, jewelry, whatever, cosmetic surgery, whatever it is that we're jealous of. They have that. I do not. And so we think that the jealousy is mandatorily generated by that circumstance. It's dictated, that my jealousy is dictated by that circumstance. So if we go through this whole process, we see that, yes, this person is more beautiful, better dressed, richer, more famous, better treated than I, but the jealousy I feel is a concoction of my mind, and I can overcome that. So that's sort of like the encapsulation of this process. That the affliction in my mind is something that I can overcome. And that's the something to aim for. So let's do some meditation. So we'll just focus on the breath. So the breath just coming in and out. Maybe more in a general sense rather than something very specific. So in just like a general sense of the breath coming in. And if you can, to focus on the awareness, like the mental awareness of that breath. And so, but before we settle on the breath, to first become aware of your mind, and then go through a process. So let me just talk about a bit, and then we'll start. So we go through a process where you let all of your thoughts go. Let all of your thoughts go until you can establish your mind in like a state of no thought. And that state is naturally peaceful because all of the thought has ceased. Right? And if we can hold on to that state for as long as we can, that's a really good thing. But it's difficult for our mind to be in a state of no thought. And so our mind wants to jump to a thought, a memory, the past, the future, something, some fantasy, some memory. It wants to do that. It can't help itself. So what we do is that we put the mind onto the breath. We deliberately put the mind onto the breath so that it is just the breath that we are focusing on. And that enables us to still be free of all other thoughts. We only have the breath to focus on. And we have to make an effort to keep the mind on the breath so that all of those other thoughts don't come back. So just for 1 or 2 minutes, focus on the breath and 100% focus on the breath. Just bring your mind back to the room. So examine what happened in that couple of minutes, and if you were daydreaming, fantasizing, sleeping, etc., lost concentration, recognise that, accept that that happened, and then we'll just repeat the meditation exactly the same with a strong determination to be 100% focused on the breath. Just relaxing your concentration a little bit. So again, as in the previous weeks, we'll just do a very quick analytical meditation. So tonight we've been talking about this experience of perceiving an object and then having an affliction arise in my mind, having that, say for instance, anger or jealousy. Pick something from your own experience and examine whether this is true, that the affliction is something arising in your mind itself, and that it's this mental experience or mental conceptuality and experience from that, as an internal, that it's an internal process. So just examine that whole process of perceiving an object and having some affliction arise in your mind, and just examine that whole process within your mind and your experience. So you can work from the external object into your perception of the object and your conceptualizing, and then the way that you perceive it, and then the affliction that arises in your mind. Just have a look at that whole process and try to understand it. And just bring your concentration back to the room. So we've got some time now for some discussion or questions or anything. If yeah.
The affliction comes in, I don't know how to speak to the person because he's talking non-stop, and I'm trying to, obviously you said you can practice that.
Yeah, so the
compassion beforehand, but when you're in that situation,
yeah, so the situation here is like a family dinner, but you're sitting across from your enemy and they're just talking at you non-stop and you're sort of there listening, trying to be pleasant, being pleasant is a virtue. But unfortunately the experience is not pleasant. Yeah, you're trying to be pleasant. Yeah, can't escape. So, so what's the problem with this?
I'm sitting there stunned. I don't know what to say or how to deal with like this.
Yeah, so the question is then how to deal with this. Okay, so is it the actual thing that they're saying is the problem, or is it the person who's saying it? It's, you know, like, okay. So one way that you can deal with the what they're saying.
And it's like it's aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive, okay. And persistent.
Yes.
So one way you can deal with that is, are you of a scientific bent? No. Okay. So in science, the sound of the person's voice is just the mere vibration of the air. Okay. That's all it is. It's just the air is vibrating. And so, you know, what happens then is that their mouth is moving and the air is vibrating, and those vibrations are sort of coming through the thing and they're hitting your ear. They're sort of just here, they're going boom, 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 boom like this. And you are interpreting that as you're entitled to, as a whole lot of stuff that they're saying. So one way you can deal with this is to just focus on the fact that this is just mere vibrations of the air. Here. Just so you can sort of look at it that even though that you think that these words have such great meaning, that meaning is really annoying you. But if you look at it that they're just this mere vibration of the air, then you can maybe be a little bit more distant to the impact of what he's saying. And you might find that helps a bit. All right? So, you know, otherwise, like your attitude to the person themselves is probably based on a perception which is based on some sort of history, some sort of thing that is in your mind. So the history of that person is in your mind. And so here we need to learn that that sort of conceptuality, we see the person and we remember 20 years of problems, you know, and then we hold on to that thought. We're holding on to that thought of the 20 years of problems. And so I cannot look at that person without thinking about the 20 years of problems. So whose fault is that?
That's fine.
Yeah. So what's the solution?
Get up and move.
The solution is forget the past. Don't think about the past. If you want to be free of that suffering, just be right in the present moment, and there's a person across from you talking. To attach that whole sort of history and let it influence your experience is, you have to, sometimes, I'm not denying history, I'm just saying that we have to be pragmatic and recognise that because I'm remembering that, I am creating my own suffering. And so that it's beneficial for me to have a bad memory at that moment.
So try and start afresh.
Yeah. So, yeah. So the question is, could you meditate in that moment? What form of meditation would you envisage? You could. But, people tend to detect that you are totally ignoring them. So, right. So this is a breathing meditation with the occasional aha. Yeah. So, look, I think, and so I would sort of recommend that engaging with them is a kindness. Now, but look, it can be difficult, but the occasional aha and the agreeing nod is done with a kind motivation, is a kindness. And try to overcome some of those other problems that we carry with us, or that we generate in a way. We're generating, why dwell on a memory which is causing you suffering? So, yeah.
People like that, they take it as a sign of weakness. It comes across as a weakness, and then they hone in on it a little more. It's like, I feel that, generally speaking, people who are forgiving and kind and loving are sort of taken advantage of. Either in an obvious way or in a secret way.
Yeah, so the question is, or the observation is, that people who show kindness and compassion and, like engage with somebody like that are opening themselves up to be losers. Is that correct? So have you been coming the last few weeks or not? So this is, you can check your own experience. Has the path of confrontation and engaging in battles with people and, fighting others, has that path resulted in happiness? Well, that's to be tried and tested to see if it does. That's something to test. Does the path of practicing love and compassion result in happiness or not? Test it. Try it. Does the path of anger and fighting people and isolation and all that, does it work? Well, test it. Well, not so obviously, because people are doing it every day. So there's a lot of people who think that the path of anger and confrontation and all that works because they're doing it every day. So, and we do it as well. So the thing is, like, if I do it, I need to work out at some point that this is not working and I should try something else. But you have to recognise that within yourself, that path is not working. And until you recognise that, you won't try any other path. Now, we have an habituation, unfortunately, towards anger, hatred, jealousy, arrogance, miserliness. We do have an habituation towards that. Occasionally, one of us will demonstrate an habituation towards generosity, or one of us might demonstrate an habituation towards patience. But as a general rule, we suffer from all of these things, as a general rule.
Don't you think that if your thoughts are to show and generate loving kindness to them, because they're not the ones who's causing it, it's in their mind that's causing it, the best thing for them and you is to remove them from your life or your work.
So the question...
It's avoidance. So instead of constantly trying to find a way, whether you feel that they're going to take advantage of you or not, is to get them out of their life.
So so the assertion here is that the better path is to remove all of the people from your life who demonstrate these bad... Not everybody. One person. Yeah. Okay. So the advice here is for you to remove this malevolent person from your life.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh.
What I'm saying is that she's talking about the person who is malevolent or angry. And she's saying that those type of people can see this as being a weakness for showing generosity and kindness. They live their life this way. Maybe they're afflicted by a mental problem.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Let me summarise your point. Yep.
And have them avoid them by getting them out of your life.
Okay, so there's a couple of points there. So his advice to you is that the malevolent person will take advantage of your love and compassion towards them. He's asserting that... May do. He's asserting that the malevolent person may take advantage of your kindness, love and compassion towards them. And so the solution for you from his advice is that you should remove them out of your life. Okay, so my sort of, the point here that I would say is that if you can maintain love and compassion to a malevolent person, independent of what they may do to you, your experience will always be one of love and compassion in your mind. And so that requires a courage to absolutely trust in love and compassion as the solution. So that is not for everybody to do right now, because it's something that requires a great courage. So we, over a period of time, hopefully, we can familiarise ourselves with the value of love and compassion so that we can have the courage to totally rely on love and compassion, even at the cost of our own life. So that's an ideal sort of aspiration, that even at the cost of our own life, to not give up love and compassion.
Damien, you're working obviously on the assumption that feeling love and compassion is actually going to make us feel better.
Yeah.
It's like to make everybody, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have been so alien to you, they wouldn't feel better if they even identified that's what it was. That's sort of a big assumption.
So the assertion from my dear friend here is that there are some people that love and compassion is so alien to that they would not experience happiness from that love and compassion.
Well, they probably wouldn't even realise what it was. Yeah,
Well, I think you'd need to find the person to show me that.
You don't mean that love and compassion is always passive. I mean, can you say no to someone in a loving and compassionate way? Otherwise, it's
Yeah, so the question is, am I saying that love and compassion is always passive? I've never said that love and compassion is passive. You know, the examples that we've been talking about the last few weeks, you can see that love and compassion is not passive, you know. But love and compassion is the instigator of our action. So, like, this is Tara Institute, right? And up here is a painting. It's a bit hard to see the painting, but this is Tara, you know, a female Buddha. And Tara is an embodiment of compassionate action. And so she sits with her right leg out like this because she's already moving forward. You know, she is already expressing compassion by action, moving forward to help others. And so that's why the posture of Tara here is this posture with the right leg out, actually moving forward. So, you know, it's good to see that aspect. Yeah. So
you mentioned that you should show love and compassion, potentially that could be even at the risk of your own death, right?
okay, yeah.
Well, my question is, can love and compassion be for everybody in the sense that if love and compassion is only shown towards others but not also yourself in each situation? What I'm thinking of is, I know I prefer when someone brings up confrontation rather than some people who are so loving and affectionate at their own expense, because I don't wish cause affliction on them, and I'd rather know how to look after them as well. So how does this concept relate to love and compassion for others as well as love and compassion for yourself?
Yeah, let me try to sort of question your question so that we're clear what you're asking. So, are you mainly thinking of love and compassion as something which is outward? You know, outgoing.
It can be in too. I guess maybe my question is, should we have confrontation? How do you express
No,
how others...
love and compassion does not necessarily mean that we do not have confrontation. Okay? Like, that's one thing. So, let's just talk about love and compassion. You're talking about showing love and compassion for others as though that is something separate to actually having the mind of love and compassion yourself. Would you see it like that? So you're using this phrase, showing love and compassion, like as though your state of mind can be something different, but you show love and compassion. So what I'm trying to talk about is about having love and compassion, having love and compassion, and then the actions that flow from that are automatic because they're generated from having love and compassion. Right? So in that circumstance, whatever the circumstance is, it's done from an experience of love and compassion. You know, a personal experience of love and compassion. So in that case, I would suggest that the sort of notion that you can feel somehow not so good about it when you're showing love and compassion, I'd say that notion cannot occur because your experience is one of love and compassion, and because of that experience, there's an action expression of compassionate care. But your experience is love and compassion. So the question of that somehow that your experience can be sort of detrimental or whatever to yourself, I don't believe arises.
So it still involves
Sorry? So I'm a bit troubled by this expression, showing love and compassion. So I think maybe you can broaden your concept of what the expression of love and compassion may be. It could be a very wrathful act. Could be. You know, like the mother that grabs the child's hand just as it reaches up to the gas stove. You know, the mother that grabs the child's hand and smacks the child and says, "Don't ever do that," in a wrathful tone, can be the complete expression of love and compassion. So this sort of idea, I'm showing love and compassion, you know, this sort of, you know, showing love and compassion can be all sorts of actions, all sorts of different actions, depending on the circumstance. Okay, I think that's a good note to finish on. So let's do a little meditation just over we think of the benefit of everybody coming together, meditating, talking, thinking, you know, is really something very special. And that takes the form of a ball of white light in the middle of the room. Bring it over yourself. You know, all the benefit of everybody doing this. Bring it above yourself. Let it pour down into yourself like a stream of white nectar comes down through the crown of your head. Completely fills your body with light. But also your mind completely clears your mind open, and your mind becomes open and expansive and completely free of any afflictions, any limitations, you know, any sort of petty problems and petty feelings, but open, completely imbued with love and compassion. And then let all of this, you know, good virtue, let it accumulate at your heart in the form of a white light egg, an egg-shaped white light at your heart. And then thinking of the situation of everybody else here in the room. You know, everybody has their problems, their afflictions, their physical illnesses, difficulties. And imagine that the rays of light go out and fill their bodies with light, completely clear their mind of all afflictions, and completely clear their body of all ailments and illnesses and problems, so that they experience a great joy and happiness. Then thinking of your families or your close ones, people close to you that you love. Imagine they also have problems, difficulties, maybe sufferings, illnesses, mental turmoil. So the rays of light go out from your heart to those people close to you, and their bodies are filled with light. All of their physical problems are banished, and their mind is completely clear and free of all afflictions and difficulty, suffering, completely free and clear and happy and joyful. So even to your enemies, they are just the same, exactly the same. They want happiness and they want to be free from suffering. And every living being, exactly the same. Imagine this great ocean of living beings in human form, all all living beings in human form facing towards you, and imagine rays of light go out to every living being, and they become free of all suffering and free of all mental turmoil, and they come to abide in happiness and joy, completely free of any problems. So just work on that visualization and that giving the rays of light out to everybody that bring them into that state. And so just contemplate that for a short while. And then imagine all those rays of light come back and dissolve back into your heart. So this light all comes back and dissolves into you. And just feel a great sense of delight at having been able to do this. Right, so thank you very much. So next week, Claire Callanan, who's one of the regular Monday night teachers here, she'll be doing next month. So I hope you're able to come along and listen to her. She's a very good teacher. And there's some tea and coffee and cake up in the dining room. And just to mention, we're videoing these and then they get uploaded to the Tara Institute YouTube channel. So if you want to look at any of our Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday night teachings, they're all on YouTube. So for the last year or so, they're all on the internet, and so you're most welcome to go and have a look and enjoy, hopefully. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.